Good morning. How's everybody doing today? I hope everyone's doing well and everybody's healthy and happy and sassy and all that good stuff. Let's open up this morning with a word of prayer, and hopefully you all can hear us on the radio there. It's 91.3 if you got to roll up your window and all that good stuff. But let's start off with birthdays, and then we'll pray, and we'll get started. Our birthdays, we have Miss Ava Brower. Where's she at? She's over here. Today, her birthday is today. Miss Madeline Gwynn on June the 29th. Mr. Steve Kidd on June the 30th. Mr. Charlie White on July 3rd. And Joey Septon on July the 4th. So let's sing them happy birthday this morning.
All right, you sing with us. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God loves you. Happy birthday to you.
Amen. Amen. We hope you have a wonderful birthday this week, and we got several prayer requests and needs that are on our prayer request. Please remember each and every one of those this week. And if you have a prayer request that you want added to the list, please let myself know, or let Randy know, or let really any of the deacons know, and they can get it to Randy, and we can add it to our list. We really do want to pray for you, and we want to lift you up. So this morning, let's get started by way of prayer, and then we'll let the worship team lead us in worship this morning. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I thank you so much, Lord, for who you are. God, I thank you for being a loving God, a caring God, a big God. And God, I pray that you help us this morning, that we realize that we serve a living God. And Lord, I thank you so much for just giving us the ability to be here and to be able to just sing your praises and be around other believers. And God, I just pray that you just bless each person gathered here, Lord. Many people came here with different needs on their hearts and lives, Lord, but I pray that for the next little bit that we just allow you to just become so real in our lives. And just let you take over and just show us what it is that you want us to do in our lives. God, I thank you so much, and I love you, and I ask all these things in your precious name. Amen.
Okay, try to sing things that you know, so sing along with us in your heart. First number we're going to do is Hallelujah. He's
those who put the work into these services and making sure that we can all get out here and still be able to serve. So I know I do this every Sunday in my heart, but this Sunday I want to do it out loud. If you can and you will, I hope you have a horn there in front of you. I want you to really think with me this morning. If you got a hand clap or whatever, let's let Rhonda and Randy and Debbie and Hillary and everybody that puts all this stuff up every Sunday and takes it down every Sunday. Let's let them know we're very thankful for them this morning. I do help a little bit, but I can't get too sweaty, you know. All right, if you have your Bibles, if you don't, you have your phone. I know you got at least one of them. Let's go back into the book of Philippians. We took a little break from Philippians last week, but we're back in Philippians. And our kind of set has been, number one, unity, and number two, that God is not finished with us yet. God's not finished with you. He's not finished with Shady Grove, and He's not finished with us yet. And so I want to invite you to go. We left off in verse 20, and we want to kind of pick up in verse 21 this morning. But the title of my sermon this morning is, Do You Have a Good Reason for Living? Do you have a good reason to be alive? During this time of pandemic, we see a lot of people that are filled with fear. A fear that is just not, and I repeat, is not of God. Now, there's a difference in being fearful and being afraid or being safe. I get in my car and I put my seatbelt on, not because I'm fearful, but because, number one, it's illegal to drive without it, and number two, just in case, that's why it's there if I am in an accident. I don't put that seatbelt on because I'm scared to death that somebody's going to hit me. I'm not scared to death of dying when I get behind the wheel. I'm not scared to death of, not making it back. That's not why I put that seatbelt on. There's a difference in a healthy, reverent fear and a fear that just debilitates you. I see a lot of Christians today, and I'm going to preach on it, so you might as well put your shoes on. There's a lot of Christians today that are so fearful and so timid and so scared of this virus, it almost makes me think they're afraid to die. Now let me back up and explain myself. The one thing that should never scare or cause fear in a Christian is death. Death should not scare the Christian. If you're a born-again, blood-bought believer, we know that this is not the end. This is not the final chapter in the book. Now, I know that in our colleges today and in our universities today, we have a lot being taught, and they really kind of try to take away any God being involved with anything. Something I want you to look at is the many different ways that we explain away God. Existentialism says that we're a product of blind chance. That we just came about just because. Materialism says there's only eternal truth that can be handled or touched. There's nothing spiritual in life. That we need to YOLO. How many of y'all know what YOLO means? You only live once. You got to go for the gusto. This is the only life you're going to live. And all these things are what are being taught. They're taught that this side of glory, that this side is what we got to build on. We got to build our fame. We got to build our fortune. We got to live our best life now. And this idea has caused Christians, because it is a heresy, and because it is not of God, it has caused Christians to become a bunch of cowards. I said it. It's because we are a bunch of cowards. We're scared to death that we might die tonight. We're scared to death that we might die tomorrow. We're scared to death of death. Why? The Bible says that Christ has already taken the sting of death. He's already taken all these things. So why is it as Christians we are so afraid to die? Why are we so afraid to go outside? Why are we so afraid to die? Do we have a reason to live? So that's what I want to talk about this morning for just a few moments. We do have a reason to live. Here in the passage, Paul gives us a reason to live. But I want you to understand that reason to live should not be something that we just do just because we're trying to survive and not die. We have a reason to live. Verse 21 in Philippians chapter 1. It says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. But if I live on in the flesh, this will mean fruit from my labor. Yet what I shall choose I cannot tell, for I am hard pressed between the two, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to remain in the flesh is more needful for you. And being confident of this, I know that I shall remain and continue with you for your progress and joy of faith, that your rejoicing for me may be more abundant in Jesus Christ by my coming to you again." God, I pray right now that you just touch us, Lord. Help us to preach this word in a way that, number one, Lord, it might be offensive to some, God, but the offense that it is causing is the change that needs to be done. God, we don't need to be afraid to live. We don't need to be afraid to get up in the morning. We don't need to be afraid of drawing our last breath. God, you said in your word that you've already taken the sting of death. You've already conquered death, hell, and the grave. You've already taken over all these things. We have nothing to fear, God. And Lord, I pray that you help empower, encourage, and embolden Christians around the world. God, I see so many that are afraid to live, and they're afraid to die, and so they don't live at all. And God, I pray that you help us, God, to apply your word to our hearts, that we might be the light in a dark world that needs to see you. God, for you are the answer. No matter what it is, God, you're the answer. And we ask all these things in your precious name. Amen. I want to talk to you for just a few moments. I'm going to try to be brief this morning and not keep things out because it is a little bit warm and it is a little bit windy. But we're going to try to be as brief as we can. There are some reasons for living, and there's some reasons that I want to look at this morning for just a moment. Christ answers the one question of our identity. Is this all there is? I want you to understand that the reason that you're alive, the reason that you have breath in your body is because Christ has so allowed it. I know that sometimes you may get tired of me saying this, and you might get tired of hearing this, but I want you to understand that in the heart of this preacher's heart, I believe that God is sovereign. Jerry made a comment on doing Sunday school, and he talks about, the preacher talks about God's sovereignty a lot. And I do that because I want you to understand, even in the midst of this pandemic, even in the midst of us not knowing, even in the midst of this fear-mongering media and all this other stuff, my God is still on the throne. He's still in control. Nobody knocked him off his throne while we were awaiting the results of anything. God is still on the throne, and he is my reason for living today. If you don't have a reason to live, then I want you to look up here. I want you to hear this. God is your source of life. He is the source of your physical life. He's the source of your spiritual life. He is the very reason that you're at church this morning. He's the very reason a lot of people may be still in bed this morning. The same breath that he allowed to be in my body that I can praise him with is the same breath that he allows me to have in my body if I meant to curse him with. Here's the problem I think some folks may have. It's not that they don't believe God's sovereign. They think that man is more sovereign than God. That's a problem for another day. But God is your reason to live. He says, for me to live is Christ. For me to live is Christ. Think about that for just a second. Think about the fact that we have a reason to exist. We have a reason to be here, to make much of Jesus, to let his name be known. One of the things that's just kind of broken my heart over the past couple of weeks is the fact that we have had this opportunity. And we still have this opportunity to show a world that our hope does not rely in the doctors. Our hope does not lie in Washington. Our hope does not lie in Raleigh. Our hope is in the only hope, and that's Christ Jesus. And he's the reason. He's the reason. For me to live is Christ. So I want you to see something that why are we here? I want you to understand that we were created to do God's will. We were created to do God's will. Verse 24, he says this, nevertheless, I remain in the flesh is more needful for you. Nevertheless, I remain in the flesh is more needful for you. Christian, you have purpose. You have purpose. If you don't hear anything else I say today, you have a purpose. And it's not to hide. It's not to cower in fear. It's not to worry yourself to death. It's not to get to the point where you can't even function as a human. God has given you a purpose that is far greater than you could ever imagine. Paul says here, nevertheless, I remain in the flesh is more needful for you. What in the world? Think about that. It is more needful for me to be here for you than it is for me. Why? For me to live is Christ, but to die is what? Gain. I get heaven. This is not the end. It is more needful for me to be here for you. Amen. Stacy and I were going on our anniversary honeymoon. Our anniversary. I was going to take Mama away for a few days and just wine and dine her, take good care of her. And so we got down there, and I'm not talking to you. I'm not even going to say the name of the place, but we got down there, and that place was so small, we couldn't even barely turn around. And so I went up there, and I said, man, we got to have something bigger. Well, we don't have anything bigger. I said, well, we got to go. And he said, well, you can go. I'll give you your money back because you were not satisfied. And I said, all right. So we're going down the road and thinking, man, we're going to find us another place. No, man, it's the middle of stinking June. And so we get finally about, I don't know, I finally gave up around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I said, let's go home, Mama. And my wife being a lot of times a lot more spiritual than I am when I'm angry. You men better say amen. She said there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason this went the way it did. I said, sure, you probably got sin in your life. I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I thought it, but I didn't say it. But we were going down the road, and I was not going the speed limit because I was not happy with the way things were turning out. And I saw this car down there with emergency flashers, and, I didn't think much of it. I really didn't until I got a little bit closer, and I was going pretty fast. And I swerved and barely missed this gentleman. He was on the side of the road, broke down, flat tire, more than a flat tire. That thing was ate up. So I stopped and I turned around and I went back. I said, man, I need to help you. Some idiot's going to hit you. So I got out and I began to talk to this gentleman, and his spare didn't work. My spare didn't work. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to work. I'm about an hour and a half late. I work at the factory right down the road here. I want you to understand something. I want you to get something. I'm about to give you something. God sent him somebody that was able to take him back to his work and able to get his car back off the road where some idiot wouldn't hit him. And God sent him somebody that could pray with him and talk to him and take him to work so that he could support his family and do what he needs to do. God sent him somebody. Now, it might have been not the person he thought it was going to be. It might not have been the way that person thought he was going to get there. But God sent that man somebody because it was more needful for me to be there than it was for me to be in the hotel room kick back and relaxing. It was more needful for me to be there than it was for me to be in that hotel. God sent him somebody. I want you to understand, God is sending you somewhere. God is sending you in a direction to go somewhere because you have a purpose to live. And let me tell you something, that purpose to live and that purpose to show Christ to a dying world cannot be achieved by being quiet and hiding. Lost my place. Amen. But God sent him somebody. I don't know that man. I know his name, know his wife's name, know his kid's name, but I don't know him from Adam's house cat, as John would say. But I told Stacy, I said, if nothing more, I hope, maybe, that I caused him to think about Christ. Because he was the one that sent me. Because if it had been left up to me, I'd have stayed in a hotel room anywhere, wouldn't I, man? I was ready to stop anywhere. I was like, let's just stop somewhere. Well, now let's go. Go on. Christ answers your purpose. Folks, you have a purpose.
Amen.
You have a purpose. We're not sitting here just to be knots on a log. Christ also answers this question that I want to harp on for just a minute. Christ answers the question of our destiny. He answers the question of our destiny. Folks, I want you to understand death is not the end. It's not that. It's not the end of the story. Death is but a crossing over point. And I want you to understand something very clearly. Death cannot harm a Christian. Death should not be scary for a Christian. Death should not be something that debilitates us as Christians. There's an old country song, and I don't listen to a lot of country, but there's an old country song that I remember a man sung one time. It goes something like, threaten me with heaven. Threaten me with heaven. Do you realize whenever we talk about people maybe harming somebody or even the over in the other countries where they're beheading Christians and they're killing them for their faith and they're hunting them down like dogs and killing them, do you realize that they are threatening them with heaven? Kind of changes the motif on everything when we start thinking about, oh Lord, I'm going to die, but yet when I die, I'm going to be present with Jesus. When I die, I'm not going to be in this world of pain. I'm not going to be in this world of sorrow. I'm not going to be in this world where bad things happen. I'm going to be absent of the body and I'm going to be present with Jesus. You don't understand that this is not the end as a Christian. Death should not scare us. Death should not debilitate us. We should still be out there and being lights in a community that needs to see that we have a hope that's different than theirs. We have a choice to allow us to look like everybody else, or we can be the difference that the world so desperately needs to see. Now, like I said, I'm going to back up and I'm going to say this one more time. I'm not telling you to go out and stop wearing masks, stop doing social distance, stop wearing your seatbelt. I'm not telling you to do that. God give us enough sense to do those things. But what I'm saying is don't let it debilitate you to the point where you don't do anything. You don't try to reach anybody. You don't try to go out in the world and tell them about Christ. That should not be what tears us down or shuts us up. If anything, I believe that's probably what the world wants it to do, is to shut us up and shut us down. But I say instead of that, get louder. People start asking about all these things, and they ask this about all these riots and all these monuments and all this, that, and the other, which has caused me to ask the question, and I hate to ask the question, no I don't, but we've got to answer this one question, and we've got to answer it in an honest way. As a Christian, are you an American Christian, or are you a Christian American? They can take down any monument they want. They can tear down all the things they want. They can do all this, because my point and my purpose is to make Christ known. I'm a Christian American. I'm thankful to live in America, but I'm a Christian first. I want to reach my brothers and my sisters at whatever cost. Let's reach them with the gospel. That's our purpose in life, is to reach people with the gospel. Christ is the answer for our existence. He is the answer for our purpose. He is the answer for our even being here. But my biggest question, I think I will probably say I have, is this. I've spoken with Christians who are outspoken, and they're just ready to take on, hell with a water pen. And I've spoken with Christians who are very tender. But my question that I have to always come back to is this. Do we know? Do we truly know who Jesus is? Do we really know who He is? Have we really submitted to Him? Do we really realize who we serve? And if we do, and we know who Jesus is, and we have that relationship with Him, then what in the world is keeping us from going forward? What in the world is keeping us from sharing the gospel and being that light in a dark community? Fear? 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind." Hey man, that sounds like a good trait. I give my fears to Him, and He gives me the power of love and sound mind. Sounds like a good trait. I think I'm going to depend on Him. Maybe today you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, man, I know. Okay, awesome. You have a purpose. For me to live as Christ, to die as gain. If everything goes south and we die, we know we've gained heaven. But don't let that stop you from living. Maybe you're sitting here today and saying, "Preacher, I don't have that boldness. I don't have that audacity to go forward and live my life that I feel like God has purposed me to do that." I want you to pray today that God give you that. It's there. It's there. It's in your heart. If Christ lives in you, it's there. You just got to let that thing go. You got to let Him live through you. It's not about me living my best life now. I live for Him now. And as Christians, that's what we do. We live for Christ. And when we die, it's our gain. Christian, I get it. Death is one thing that scares many people, but it should not scare us. It should not scare us. It should not. Father God, I thank You so much, Lord, for Your love and Your kindness, Your mercy and Your grace. God, I pray that You help us as Christians. God, help us as the church to not be afraid. God, You've not given us a spirit of fear. That's the enemy that's doing that. God, help us to fully rely on You, God. In the coming days, Lord, I don't know what's happening in the world. I know that it's mass chaos and things are going this way and that way. And we have this fear one day and not fear the next day. God, I pray that we get refocused back on You. and understand that it is more needful for us to be here and preach the gospel and teach the gospel and share the gospel with our neighbors now more than ever. God, we can worship in heaven. We can be happy in heaven. We can run around and be joyful in heaven. We can talk to one another in heaven. We can fellowship with one another as Christian believers in heaven. But the one thing that will not happen in heaven is sharing the gospel. There'll be no need for it. Because the ones that need it will be eternal damnation. God, help us to get back to sharing the gospel. It is nevertheless needful for us to share the gospel today more than ever. God, help us to know that we have a purpose in life. And that purpose is to do your will and serve you. God, I pray over each person gathered here, Lord. You know their hearts and lives, Lord. You know people come here, God, and they've got things going on in their lives. And this, God, I pray that you just encourage them today, that they have a reason to live. And that fear is of the enemy, and we can tell that enemy, go away. Lord, I thank you, and I love you. And I ask all these things in your precious name. Amen. Church, I want to thank you for coming out. I want to encourage you to understand that God has not given us no spirit of fear. He's given us a purpose to live. And that purpose is to make him known. And if you don't know him personally as your Lord and Savior, that you get that nailed down before it's eternally too late. We're living in a world that is pretending like hell doesn't exist. But if hell could speak today, they would say they exist. I want you to understand, we love you here at Shady Grove. But we love you too much for you to stay the same way you are. We want you to grow. We want you to be bigger, better Christians. We want you to love God more and love people and make much of Jesus. God bless y'all. Mr. Mike is coming around, the guy with the mask and the gun. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to take a few days with my wife and let you guys know that we love you. We missed you guys while we were gone, and we are tickled to death to be back. And I hope y'all have a blessed and wonderful week. God bless you all.
July the 4th is Saturday, so in honor of the 4th of July, we're going to do a patriotic number called America the Beautiful. Sing with us in your cars.
Real quick, youth, for those who are going to be able to make it to youth, we will have youth at the parsonage. So if you're able to make it, we'd love to have you come out there. We're going to hang out there on the carport and social distance and have a little lesson. But youth, we're going to move our youth meeting down to the parsonage.